Welcome to episode 228 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with Jesper Søegaard about Danish football and engaging grassroots via technology.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who can't play League of Legends with any skill, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and I can't play League of Legends with any skill. I leave that to my esports team, Gravitas, in the OPL. You can check them out at Gravitas OCE on Twitter or Gravitas GG on the internet. GG meaning good game. Otherwise, if you want to contact me old-fashioned way, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. or at Sean Callanan, or at Sports Geek. You can get me on most channels. Before I jump in to my chat with Jesper Søegaard from the Danish Football Association, I just want to quickly chat about digital to dollars and some of the different pivots and different ways that it's being used by clubs and teams and rights holders. So as we've sort of said and spoken about previously, it's a 5-part process. It works with a rights holder, a team or a league to help them understand their audience, their content, their distribution channels, which would be social and email and potentially new channels like Twitch that we're investigating and playing around with in the esports space. But then looking at that rate card, how do you define what your value is and what are you going to represent that back to your sponsors, and then building out those campaigns. So if there's anything in that spectrum that you're interested in, whether it be reviewing your audiences, doing content review, looking at that rate card piece, or looking to upscale your partnerships, I talk a little bit about this with Jesper and the process that they've gone through over the last couple of years. Please reach out, as I said, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Really enjoy this chat, and here I am stumbling over my words, which I do in this. Trying my best to speak a little bit of Danish, and what you will find out from this podcast is my Danish is terrible. So I hope you enjoy my chat with Jesper Søegaard from the DBU. Very happy to organise this chat from one side of the world to another. Jesper Søegaard from the Digital Commercial Manager from the DBU. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
How did I go with the name pronunciation? Was it close?
Yeah, I actually think when I was a student back many years ago, I as a student job at university, I taught Danish to exchange students, and it's a very, very difficult language to learn. So I think you came really close with the short time span you had to practice. But it's actually Søegaard, but it's really close, your pronunciation.
Well, I'll work on it. I was lucky enough to be there January last year, meeting up with a friend of mine, another Jesper Nahom, who works at Team Denmark. So I was in Copenhagen and got to see the beautiful city. So it was good to be there. And yes, it is a beautiful language, but it's not one that I understand. So tell us a little bit about your role, and tell us about the DBU and what it is, and for the listeners, just to get started.
Yeah, just like on the very on a very high level, the DBU is like the association in Denmark that connects football throughout the grassroots all the way to the national team. So we're actually an organization that's very both political and commercial orientated, and we have a lot of different roles and areas that people work with. So just like very, very plain simple, getting the tournaments up and running, getting referees to show up at games, that's part of our work. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have handling the men's national team and all the commercial rights in connection with that team. So we're about 80 people here, and in Denmark we are by far the biggest association. So it's an interesting world working with Yeah, so a lot of different areas are handled by DBU.
So for the people who are listening, you are the national governing body for football in Denmark, and that is, getting everyone to play football from kids all the way up to the national team, and so that is all encompassing. So if you've got every country in the world, it is the world game after all. We'll have a federation looking at being a steward of the world game. That's your role. That's the role of the DBU. And so your role as digital commercial manager. How long have you been working there?
Yeah, my role is the digital commercial manager. I've been at the DBU since the beginning of 2014, actually. Around 5 years soon.
Yep.
And I started my career doing advertising before I went to the DBU.
Okay.
So yeah, about 5 years here.
And so, what was your first role when you started leaving the advertising world?
Yeah, I started as a copywriter back in 2009, fresh out of university. And after a while doing copy, I got more and more fascinated by the whole digital world.
Yep.
And doing a lot of CRM campaigns for big car companies actually. So that was like my beginning. I became key account on a big car company doing their email marketing and digital marketing. And I just evolved in that world. And in 2014, I was called by a good friend of mine saying we are doing a big digital turnaround or a digital journey in DBU, and we want you to come on board and lead this journey. So I started in DBU in 14 with the responsibility for tickets, fans, CRM, and data. So a very, very big role from the beginning. And
big, broad brief, but it is a common one. The CRM journey. It's not you don't say we're there because you're always evolving. And so that was what was the landscape like? So this is like 2014 when a lot of teams, a lot of NGOs were starting to clean up house a little bit from a data point of view and starting to look at CRM and sort of running CRM projects and like you said, upskilling and expanding stuff. What was the first day? What did the landscape look like when you first came in to the role?
Yeah, I think. As you mentioned back then in 14, and I think still organizations are in the beginning of their journey, but the DBU in 14 was, I could immediately see a huge potential because we were very, very unstructured in the way we worked with both data and loyalty and digital touch points. But we had actually a lot of different data pools. So the situation was in 14 that we had a lot of large data pools collecting data, but we had no connection between the different data pools, and we had no proper tool to activate and to work with the data. So I had a really, really, really good foundation built by the people before me, and I had all opportunities to create a digital environment, monetizing and using the opportunities in the data.
And so once, like I said, it's not you don't never get to a final point, but once you start getting better control of your data, because as a governing body, you've got these different data sets. You've got your players that are coming through the youth programs. You've got the parents of the players coming through. You've got referees as a different set. You've got coaches as a different set. You've got elite teams. And then the other part of it is you've got the fans, like who's coming to our games, who's coming to our tournaments. So as you sort of tackle, because it's not just one project, it's like 6 or 7 different projects with different goals and objectives. Was there a particular focus you started on and that you tackled first?
Yeah, I think my first order of business was to get an overview of different data pools and giving us the opportunity to connect all our data points in a single customer view. People were working with the data in many areas of the house, in many different functions, and that gave that created two main challenges for me. One was that we the fan like a coherent experience with the DBU, so we can have all kind of visual identities, all kind of different departments in the house talking to the same person from different approaches. That was not a good experience for the fans. Second off, we weren't able to create value for our own products through data. So I took all the different data pools, and in close cooperation with two circles from London, we created the football data warehouse, connecting all our data pools. So we have player data, we have transaction data, we have fan club data, merchandise data. We got like commercial competition data. Have you competed in the competition online? And we got video data and cookie data. All those data pools are now connected. That was the first order of business in a single customer view in our main data warehouse. That enables us to see you as a fan, as a player in one row. So I can, in the ideal world, I can look up a contact and see, okay, you've played 20 games this year. You went to 3 national team games last year. You bought a shirt size medium, and you visited our website yesterday.
Yep. And so once you get that view, you can then start looking at it from that 30,000 foot view of what is the data telling us and what opportunities are in that space. Is that where, I guess, the sort of the role, the digital commercial manager role started to develop, because you started having that strong foundation of what your data was?
Yeah, that's exactly the way that everything developed. As soon as we got the general overview, we could pretty easily identify areas with potential, like low-hanging fruits. And my role at that point got split up. So we hired a ticketing manager that also handles the fan club now, and we hired a marketing coordinator to do like the more day-to-day work on setting up campaigns, and I was free to do more strategic things around the data, so I could like lead our business in the right direction from a business case standpoint. So looking at, okay, we could optimize our ticket sales by doing this, so I could create a CRM strategy. We can optimize our engagement work by doing this. I can do an engagement strategy. So like leading the company in the right direction, but always based on the foundation of data.
And was there a re-education process required? Because normally when you go from that siloed data with, that hasn't been brought together and have that single view, you'll have commercial relationships that, use dirty terms like email blasts and things like that. Was there a re-education process for, the commercial folk or the partners that you'd worked with in the past that have said, oh, cool, you would just send out an email, realizing that didn't work, but that was the terms that they were using, where you're saying, no, it's actually going to be better if we send out this email just to these 30,000 people. It's half as many as we usually send out, but it's more effective. Was there? How did you go with that education process?
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great point, because it's a whole nother mindset that needs to be implemented in a pretty much old school organization. And I think this whole development in 2014 came at a great time for the DBU, because the years leading up to this, we had some two main challenges from a commercial standpoint. Ticket sales were dropping.
Yep.
We were having issues with selling tickets for home games. We were having huge issues with the loyalty. We had quite a lot of lapsing customers. Second challenge was selling main partnerships, sponsorship deals surrounding the national team, because as everybody knows, the sponsorship market has developed from like pure exposure to a much more return on investment focus from the partners.
Yep.
So we need the digital data track in order to create value for partners. So that was like the main two challenges that this whole mindset changed. And going back to your initial question, we actually did quite a lot of education internally in DBU. I presented slides for the entire house, the entire organization, visualizing how we now collect, we gather data pools in one single customer view. So being really, really specific on how each department can use this to create value. And at the same time, for the sales team, getting me involved in pitches for potential partners, so I can go to meetings and talk to Carlsberg or Hummel or other big partners on how we can use this in order to create value in their partnership. So we actually did the education from bottom up. So all departments got a take on it, and also I was going to the partners telling them about this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the vital piece, because if you do all the work back of house and don't tell the sales team and don't tell your partners, nothing changes. It's like you've done all this great work, and I'm guessing you're finding as you're going to more and more of these pitch meetings and meeting with partners that data is becoming more and more in focus, like especially as you said, moving more to a partnership rather than just pure impressions and that kind of thing. Is that what's leading the conversation? They're saying, tell us about your data, who have you got, that kind of thing. That's where it starts?
Yeah, actually, in sport, in the enterprise sponsorship world, that's different companies got different takes on how they see value in partnerships. Still a lot of they still see value in the whole image thing, getting their brand connected to the image of the DBU, especially when we got the World Cup and European Cup. But especially the last couple of years, they've been focused very much on the data, and that's been leading the conversation, especially with companies that sell directly to consumers. We got Carlsberg as a big customer, but they don't do like direct sales for consumers. They're more in bars and stores and stuff like that. So the data track maybe doesn't make that much sense to them. But we got Volkswagen as well. They are extremely interested in this because they are focusing on generating traffic to the car dealers all over Denmark, so we can do segmented campaigns in specific areas for specific age group with a specific income. That's extremely interesting for a company like them.
And that's the thing. I think that's the danger for sports marketers and commercial folk if they don't realise the difference between those two types of sponsors. Because you're right, there's still the Carlsbergs and out of the world that still just want the logo on the chest and want to be still seen as number one, and it is awareness piece. But if you don't understand that the customer acquisition piece and those types of sponsors, for a lot of people, they're getting it at a very cheap price because it's not being valued appropriately. Whether it's trying to sell electricity or telcos or those kind of things that are very much and they've been far deeper in the analytics and CRM space for far longer than sports, and so they know the value of their customer. And I think that's where I think that the game will be leveled up a little bit as sports lifts its game in that space.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as this Monday, we announced another a main partner for the men's national team, and that's one of the biggest banks in Denmark. And that's a great example of a company wanting to use the data because that makes like insurance companies, banking, as you mentioned, telecom. That's extremely interesting for them, and they are very, very advanced in the way they work with data. So, in order and we can hands down say that we are probably the best digital sponsorship company or association in Denmark. We are far better than actually the clubs as well. So we can offer them quite a unique product. and also like the fruits we're harvesting now is like the result of 4 years work. The database has grown by 700% in the last 4 years, and that's not just people we gather by name. That's people who opted in.
Yep.
So we've been really, really focused on growing the size of the database in order to give that value to potential partners. And now we're harvesting that work at the moment.
And so one of the key things, and it is a balancing act when you're the federation for a country, for sport like football, is that balancing act of recruiting fans that are supporting your game and filling the stadiums, which is, really important. And it's, you have X many games a year, and you want to make sure that all the support is there. But then the other piece is you're the ward of the game, and you've got to actually make sure people keep coming through and playing. What have you done in the grassroots space to make sure you're engaging that younger generation and making sure that they're going to grow up with football and playing football, because they've got so many different choices now in front of them that maybe 20 years ago they didn't have? What are you doing in that space?
Yeah, I totally agree. And just before I answer your question, just to modify my angle on
Yep.
using data, we always secure that we create some kind of relevance for the fans if we activate partners. So everything, I'm the main spokesman in DBU, for we always look at the relevance for the fans. So we won't be spamming people at any time when we do digital activation. So we always look at commercial revenue, image, participation, and engagement. That are 4 main areas that we focus on using data. And in order to answer your question on engaging a younger demographic, 2 years ago I was challenged by the board saying in the main football database we have 350 players registered. Yep. How do we use that data in an intelligent way? How do we create a digital environment that can secure engagement and participation? So that was the challenge that were placed on my desk. I had some talks with some different agencies, and we decided to create a brand new digital universe focusing on active players called Dribbler. And the main value proposition for Dribbler was putting every single player in focus. So it doesn't matter if you play the first division or you play the 8th division. Dribbler will give you your personal stats and put you in the center of attention in the DBU. So the whole Dribbler universe is focusing on taking the player data and making it relevant for each player. So if you download the Dribbler app today, Sean, you could go in. If you're a Danish player, you can see, okay, this is my career the last 4 years. How many games did I play? How many goals did I score? What team am I playing next? Who's the biggest profiles for the team we're meeting this weekend? I can see every data point that is in connection with my own career, all gathered in one app.
And so, I mean, that very much fits in they want to follow and track what you're doing yourself. So you're pretty much just putting that in the hands of the player, because previously that was, I guess, lost or just wasn't accessible. Like the data was there, it just wasn't provided to the end user, being the player.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, in Denmark, we're pretty advanced in collecting the data from games. So every, like a team sheet for a game, it's all digital. So everything is feeded live automatically into the data warehouse. And the situation before the Dribbler app was that we put all the leagues and tables and standings on a general level on our website. Yep. And what I saw back in 15 when we started, 16 when we started the process of creating Dribbler, was that on a yearly basis we got 50 million on dbu.dk. 85% of all those page views were focused around the leagues and tables. So that's a pretty clear indicator for me that people were interested in seeing the leagues and tables and standings, of course, of their own teams. but we weren't able to show them some personalized data, and that's actually the most important thing about Dribbler. So we took that great potential, that huge traffic, and threw it all into the app and angle and like a gamification vibe surrounding your career.
And so then because like engagement's so elusive for brands, if you had commercial partners want to be part of Dribbler, to be supporting grassroots football and to be part of the game?
Mm-hmm. We did actually, and that's the point about Dribbler is for a commercial standpoint, it's extremely interesting because we got 350,000 active players in Denmark, and Dribbler is like the main access point for these guys. So in order for a commercial partner to tap into these opportunities, it's extremely important. We actually, as soon as in the development phase, we onboarded a commercial partner, a betting company. So they had a target audience of people older than 18.
Yep.
And we built an entire section where we don't do tactical marketing at all. We do like a gamification angle on activating their partnership. So the betting partner created a trophy section where you as a player can, from a predefined algorithm, you can chase some different trophies as the season goes along, and we'll be doing we do like you get free bets, you get different prizes, you get a team kit if you achieve some of these trophies. So the commercial partner was actually onboarded from a gamification angle and not from a tactical marketing perspective. So that's extremely exciting as well.
So have you also seen, I guess, other commercial outcomes in that you're getting, high engagement in the app? Have you been able to do things like sell tickets to games? How do you balance there's an opportunity, they're highly engaged, let's hit them up with all these different adverts and all these different offers, because it's something you want to protect because they're going there because they're engaged with the content and it's a really strong connection. How do you balance that?
Yeah, the strategy is actually pretty clear, and we want to keep the app and the universe advertising free. If the partners want to be activated, it should be in doing it in an intelligent way. So we create value for the players and for the partner in an intelligent way. We don't want that the Dribbler app to be advertising in there in any way. So we are very, very, very focused on that. So we won't be selling tickets in the Dribbler universe. We won't be doing weird advertising stuff at all. So if the partner wants to be a part of the project, they need to come up with, we together need to come up with an intelligent concept that lives within the app. And that's the trophy section. That's a great example.
Yep.
And the betting partner also, we also created for this season two content formats like player of goal of the week and team of the month. So every month we find the team with the highest player rating and they get a prize from the betting partner. And every week we find the goal of the week from videos uploaded by players. And the best goal is also awarded with a prize from the betting partner. So every time we activate the commercial partner in Dribbler, it's with a relevant angle for the player.
But the good thing is, because you've got the data back end all sorted, you've got your Dribbler audience and their activity in your CRM, in your database anyway, don't you? Yeah, we do. So I can also see, like, if we want to do email marketing, at the Dribbler data points in there. So for me, the key word in using the data for us is relevance. We always need to focus on what relevance and what value are we creating for our fans and our players. We will never do weird advertising stuff that doesn't fit with the football angle somehow. So that's extremely relevant for us to focus on. So what was your biggest lesson going through building an app?
I think building an app is always super complicated, and you got all kinds of different challenges going forward. I think my biggest lesson was keeping it simple. and focusing on the key value. In the creative phase, we got like tons of different ideas. We can compare your stats with other players with your name in the same region, and we can do the average weight of your team compared to an average weight of a national team, and how many kilometers did you drive for away games last season. We had there are so many data points. We had tons of creative ideas, but when we tested the functionality and the different concepts in the development phase with the players, they were pretty clear in what they wanted. They wanted an app that focused on only the games. So how many goals did I score? Was I man of the match? Bookings, red cards, the next opponent for our upcoming game. How good are they? Who are their profiles? So the message was pretty clear. Focus on my games and the coming games and my opponent. Ditch all that weird stuff and fun facts and different angles. It doesn't create value for me. So the final product, the app, was actually pretty much streamlined and focusing on games only.
Definitely. I mean, that the whole scope creep, as it's called, like you start doing it, wouldn't it be good to do this? Oh, this would be good. And you're just coming up with these ideas in a bubble. Like, there's nothing better than when you've got an app, put it in the hands of one of your users, stand back and watch them use it. And if they're not using the bells and whistles you're putting in, it's because they don't care about it. It's not part of the user journey. They're not worried about the latest bells and whistles or an AR. Oh, we'll put something in that has the logo come up 3D in an AR implementation when they pull their phone out. It's like, no, they want to know their score and what they're. So I think it's because you can derail a project by adding too many of those things, and it's much better to launch with something leaner and add stuff than having to pull something out of a bloated product, because it's really hard to fix the problems you might have on a first impression if you don't get it right. So
exactly, and that's also part of the learning journey for all digital products. It's like you need to build a core functionality that creates great value from the start. Then you can always build upon that foundation. When you got a lot of downloads, you got a lot of engagement within the app, you can always add cool stuff. But you need to create a core value from the beginning. And that's exactly what Dribbler did. And then just in order to elaborate on the creation of the app and the functionality we had a really structured approach to creating the functionality. We did 10 different focus group interviews, and we did a huge survey for active players in order to create exactly the product that the players wanted. So Dribbler isn't a result of some kind of creative workshop between me and an agency.
Yep.
Dribbler is exactly what the players told us they wanted, and that's an important point to make.
Well, thank you very much. Before we get into the closing five, I'm with Jesper Søegaard. Have I said that right again, or I said it wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 50%.
50%.
Right.
So that means 50% wrong, but I'll accept it. I want to get into our closing five. Thank you very much for the chat. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm a huge fan of a Danish team called Brøndby. A team that when I was growing up were winning tons of titles, but the last years been a really, really tough stroke. But I remember my father taking me to my first Brøndby game, a freezing November night, and I stood on the fan stand and was just overwhelmed by the atmosphere. So a home game at Brøndby in November, and it was actually so cold in Denmark. You need to drink beer when you see a football game. But I was a kid. I was like 6 years old, but I still remember my father were having a beer.
Yep.
And it got so cold, his hand got numb, so he dropped the beer because he couldn't hold it.
Oh, that's tragic. That's tragic.
That's super Danish. Yeah.
And so you would have been a fair few sports events in your time. Do you have a favorite food memory or a go-to food?
I think Actually, the food surrounding sports events in Denmark are really, really bad. So you always get like a hot dog.
Hot dog,
like stand for sports events in Denmark. But I'm quite fascinated. I've been traveling to the States quite a bit watching NFL, and I'm super fascinated by the food for football games. You can get all imaginable foods. So I'm definitely voting for development in the Danish sports food market. That would be great. But hot dog is always a go-to food for me.
Yeah, so I see. For me, it's and again, I'm going to get it wrong. Flaverstock is the Danish delicacy that I was introduced to. I think I'm saying it right. The pork rind.
Oh yeah. That's a classic as well. Yeah.
Yes, so I did find that to be my favourite Danish snack food. But I am Homer Simpson in real life, so that's to be understood. What's the first app you open in the morning?
That's my Outlook app.
So you're checking email first?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there someone that you've either read recently or you follow that the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
I think taking the group of listeners into consideration, this might be a very, very few of them actually getting value out of this. But I'm listening to a Danish podcast called the Ministry of Football. I think the correct translation would be Fodboldministeriet is the Danish word, with former national team player Lars Jakobsen as one of the guests there, and it's a great, fun football podcast telling old anecdotes from old players, and at the same time discussing current matters in the Danish football world. So if any Danes out there not listening to should definitely get started.
I find it interesting how much that, being a podcaster myself, but how much that's developing, and that you can get, niche podcasts that, in your world, that's not niche, but, either athlete-driven, which we're seeing in the US, with some athletes hosting their own podcasts. But previously, there wasn't a place for that content to be. You either had to have a radio show or you didn't. And now, that content's, available. Yeah,
I agree.
So this question you can answer as yourself, Jesper, and you can also answer with your DBU hat on. So what social media platform is your MVP, the most valuable player?
Yeah, I think for a DBU standpoint, I'm like deep down, I'm a ticketing guy. So I always look at creating revenue through ticket sales using our digital platforms. That's one of my main purposes. And I'll say from engagement and sales point, Instagram stories in Denmark, that's really, really an effective platform for
so both from an engagement content point of view, but then also from an ads point of view?
Yeah, exactly. That's by far our most efficient traffic driver. That's Instagram stories. And just to, I'm only allowed to say one, right?
Yes. I have a hard and fast rules. And what about yourself? From a personal point of view, when you're going to a platform, which one do you find you have seem to be going to the most?
Snapchat, actually.
Snapchat. Okay.
Yeah, that's my main mean of communication between both my wife and my friends. We use Snapchat quite a lot, like a texting function.
Yeah, and I think that's, like, it's been interesting sort of seeing Mark Zuckerberg's latest sort of town hall, his latest talk where he's sort of pivoting Facebook to being more in that private messaging space. I think more and more of the activity is happening in that space, whether it's Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Instagram messages. I think more of the content that was being put online 5 years ago is now being put in messages. So it's going to be interesting to see how it changes the behaviour, how it changes the effectiveness of the ad product. To be honest, as a marketer like yourself, how's that going to affect it? But I think that's where more and more of people's both consumption but more posting is happening.
I agree. Yeah.
So before we wrap things up and get your details, I wanted to say thanks to Matt Cutler from Two Circles who helped tee up this interview. Really appreciate it, Matt. Where can people connect with you, Jesper? What's the best platform or way to reach out to you?
I think actually you can find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there. I check my LinkedIn account very often, and I use it as a networking tool as it is. Okay. So feel free to reach out to me if you got any questions or are curious about anything, or I can help you with anything. I'm more than happy to answer questions or help people if necessary.
Terrific. Well, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn on the show notes on this episode. As I say on most episodes, if you have listened and you have enjoyed the conversation with Jesper and you want to know more about what they've done with Dribbler or the DBU or the CRM project that they've done, please reach out and in the comment or in the invitation, say you listen to the podcast to give some context. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I hope to come back. Unfortunately, when I was in Copenhagen, there was no games on. I did check out FC Copenhagen, but there was no games on. I got a tour of the stadium and things like that, but I wasn't able to catch a game. So I've got a standing invitation to come back, and I'm looking forward to maybe coming back and catching a game or two. So hopefully we can catch up when I next do that. Yeah, please do, John. Just give me a call. I can give you tickets for whatever game you want, so we can go see some football. Terrific. And we'll talk soon. Perfect. Thank you so much.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Jesper. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. To get his LinkedIn details, simply go to the show notes for this episode. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/228 or send me a tweet and ask me for details. But as I've said in previous episodes, I really do appreciate when listeners reach out to guests and ask them, tell them that they've listened, but then also ask them a few questions about what they've done, whether it's around the digital transformation piece, the engaging grassroots via technology piece, or the commercialization piece, which I spoke with Jesper about. On that piece, a little pitch from me from a consulting point of view. Some of the projects that we've been working on recently, a few in the education and training space, whether that's working with your digital teams or working with teams to help them bring them up to speed. Rising tides lift all boats. How do they use particular platforms? What are the tools that they could use? Those kind of things. And also offering a pick my brain type of consulting opportunity, which is a session which, as the title suggests, you or your team get to pick my brain, whether it's, hey, we've got a campaign coming out, what are the tweaks that we could do, or we're actually finding is a really good starting point to engage with your team to understand where I can help you understand the landscape, whether it be quizzing me on what the trends are that I'm seeing globally and from the conversation I'm having, or diving in on a specific need or issue and potentially unlocking some ideas in that space. Obviously, still doing a lot of work in the commercialization space, helping people understand what assets they have and helping the commercial team better understand how they can go about selling those. And then obviously now being in the esports space, if you're a team or a league or someone that's interested in esports, trying to figure out how you could play in the space, how your team could play in the space, those kind of things, I'm more than happy to chat. Reach out. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Really thankful and grateful for the conversations that I get from this podcast and having people reach out asking how we can help them. That's why I do the podcast. One, to produce this content and share the stories like Jesper's, but then also develop some business and do some more work, interesting work in the space with Sports Geek. So As always, you can contact me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. And until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Follow our League of Legends esports team at gravitas.gg. For more resources, go to sportsgeekhq.com. Looking for new campaign ideas to drive new and fresh data and leads? Contact Sean to find out how SportsGeek can help you drive fans into your stadium. It's all about the cheeks in the seats.